48 teams, 3 host nations, 104 matches. Strip away the noise, and the math says something almost nobody wants to hear. This tournament will almost certainly be won by one of 5 teams. Not because of hype, because the qualification data, the squad depth, and the tournament history all point the same direction. So here's the question we're actually answering. Ranked from the weakest case to the strongest, who are they, what does the data say about each one, and what's the single variable that could blow up every prediction on this list? We start with the team that has the most talent and the least to show for it. Portugal arrive with arguably the deepest midfield at the tournament. Bruno Fernandes has produced 30 assists in his last 40 appearances for the national team. Johan Neves, 20 years old, is already regarded by coaching staffs across Europe as a generational talent. Ruben Dias anchors a defense that allowed only 2 goals in qualification, and in June 2025, this group won the Nations League, beating Germany in the semi-final and Spain in the final. Here's the data point that matters more. 3 consecutive major tournaments, Qatar 2022, Euro 2024, and the Nations League aside, Portugal's ceiling at the World Cup specifically has been the quarterfinal. Twice in a row. The squad quality has never been the variable in question. The decision-making in elimination games has been. Cristiano Ronaldo is 41 and playing his 6th World Cup, a record no outfield player has matched. His production has declined, which is exactly why this version of Portugal may be more dangerous than previous ones. The team no longer depends on him to create. But a 41-year-old non-factor for stretches of matches is still a tactical complication. 7 games deep into a tournament played in North American heat. This is the last World Cup he will ever play. That alone changes nothing about the data. It changes everything about how this team will play when it matters. Portugal have the personnel. The data says they have not yet solved the knockout round problem, which brings us to a team facing the exact opposite problem. Not whether they can win when it matters, but whether they can do it twice. The reigning champions carry the lowest margin for error of any team on this list, and the numbers explain why. No men's team has won consecutive World Cups since Brazil in 1962. That's not superstition, it's 16 tournaments of evidence that defending a title at this level is structurally difficult. Squads age, opponents adjust, and the gap between favorite and field narrows. Argentina's supporting cast remains genuinely elite. Julian Alvarez is performing at a level that places him among Europe's best center forwards. Enzo Fernandez and Alexis Mac Allister give Argentina midfield control that most squads can't match. Christian Romero and Lisandro Martinez, when both healthy, form a center-back pairing capable of shutting down elite attacks. The variable is Messi. He's 38. He hasn't played a full competitive club season since leaving PSG, and tournament soccer over 6 weeks places a different physical demand on a player than a domestic league calendar. Lionel Scaloni has shown, across a World Cup and 2 Copa Amosisi Rica titles, that he knows how to manage Messi's minutes. How? That's a real coaching asset, not just optimism. But asset management only goes so far against fatigue. Argentina's floor is high. Their ceiling depends on whether their best player has one more 6-week peak left in him. And history says that window doesn't stay open twice. Now compare that to a team that just spent 2 years closing the exact gap that's cost them every World Cup since 2002. Brazil's case rests on a structural change, not a sentimental one. Carlo Ancelotti, 5 Champions League titles as a manager, the most decorated club coach in European soccer, took over in 2024. The measurable result: Brazil's defensive organization in qualifying improved noticeably, and they finished with 8 wins in 12 matches at the top of a tough South American group. That's a tactical fix, not a vibe shift, and it's the biggest reason Brazil rank above 2 World Cup finalists from 2022. The attacking numbers are equally strong. Vinicius Jr. remains, by output and by underlying data, one of the 2 or 3 most dangerous attacking players in the world. Rafinha put up 12 goals for Barcelona last season and has improved every year of his career. Alisson at 32 is still performing at a top 5 goalkeeper level. The open question is the backline. Gabriel and Eder Militão are strong individually, but the fullback positions have shown vulnerability that Ancelotti hasn't fully resolved. And then there's Neymar, barely on the field competitively since October 2023, now attempting to play himself back into form with Santos. If he's healthy and sharp, Brazil's ceiling rises significantly. If he isn't, this is a very good team without its most unpredictable playmaker. Brazil have fixed their biggest historical weakness. Whether they've fixed it completely is still an open question. And that question is exactly what separates them from the next team on this list, where there isn't a single weak position to debate. By depth alone, France are tough to argue against, and this is where the case becomes less about narrative and more about roster math. 2 World Cup titles, a final appearance in 2022, decided on penalties after Kylian Mbappé scored a hat-trick in a losing effort. Itself a data point about how dangerous this squad is even when it doesn't win. Mbappé at 27 remains arguably the most complete forward in the sport. Elite with both feet, elite in transition, elite under pressure. What separates France from every other team on this list is what happens when you take their best player out of the equation. Ousmane Dembélé put up 14 goals and 17 assists for PSG last season. Michael Olise is widely considered the most dangerous wild card in the entire tournament. Aurélien Tchouameni, Eduardo Camavinga, and Adrien Rabiot give Didier Deschamps multiple midfield options. Jules Koundé, William Saliba, and Dayot Upamecano form a backline that, on form, ranks among the tournament's top 2 or 3. Deschamps has won a World Cup as a player and one as a head coach. His tournament track record speaks for itself. The counter-argument is also backed by data. France underperformed relative to roster quality at both Euro 2020 and Euro 2024, and Deschamps' conservative approach has, at times, made an objectively superior roster look ordinary. France don't need to be the best team on the field in any given 90 minutes. Across 7 matches, depth like this tends to win out. But there's exactly one team that has both that depth and a result already sitting on the scoreboard to prove it. And that's where this list ends. Spain hold the top spot because, unlike every other team here, the case isn't built on potential or redemption. It's built on results that already happened. Euro 2024, champions, without allowing more than 1 goal in a single match across the entire tournament, beating Croatia, Italy, Germany, and France along the way. World Cup qualifying, 10 wins in 10 matches, 36 goals scored, 4 allowed. The best qualifying record of any team in Europe. This isn't a team being projected forward from potential. It's a team extending a result that's already on the board. The roster is also statistically the youngest core among the contenders. Lamine Yamal will be 18 by the World Cup final, and is already being described across European coaching staffs as a top-tier talent at the senior level. Nico Williams gives Spain a mirrored, equally direct threat on the opposite side. Rodri won the 2024 Ballon d'Or as a defensive midfielder, a position that almost never produces individual award winners, because his positional control measurably changes how often Spain lose. Pedri and Fabian Ruiz round out a midfield that lets Spain control possession for entire matches. The one structural risk? Spain plays without a traditional center forward, relying on a false 9 system that creates defensive confusion for opponents, but spreads goal-scoring responsibility across wide players and midfielders rather than a single focal point. In a knockout match decided by one moment, that can cut either way. No Spanish team has ever won back-to-back major tournaments. That's the historical counterweight. But this group is younger, deeper, and statistically more dominant in qualifying than any other team on this list. And right now, the numbers say they're the team to beat. So here's the variable we promised at the start, the one piece of data that none of these 5 teams can buy, train, or coach their way around. Pressure. Portugal has had it for 3 tournaments and folded. Argentina has it in one 38-year-old body. Brazil is hoping it's been solved by a new coach. France has survived it by sheer depth. and Spain hasn't been truly tested by it yet at all. Every ranking on this list is built on real data. Every single one of them is still just a prediction. Which one do you think the data is underrating? Drop your ranking below. ROP.